Hello and welcome to Behind the Barcode, a Baptist World Aid Australia series that unpacks the truth about ultra-fast fashion and also how it impacts people and the planet. My name's Hannah, and having worked at a not-for-profit for almost 10 years, I'm now on a mission to be more mindful about what I buy.
And I'm Kat. I work to make the fashion industry more ethical, and I love bringing those insights into my everyday life and into my wardrobe. We are your hosts for this conversation. Ultra-fast fashion is reshaping how we wear, value, and buy our clothes. These cheap clothes really do come at a great cost. So, without further ado, let's get behind the barcode.
Well, Kat, I'm really excited about getting into this sort of consumer psychology side of fast fashion or ultra-fast fashion. And I thought maybe I'd kick us off with a couple of little stats that I've heard of. Shein's 2024 annual revenue was somewhere around 40 billion USD and Temu around 70 billion USD. So for me, the shocking component about this was that for comparison, there's a couple of things. For comparison, H&M is sitting around 22 billion. Now, and in this case, H&M represents fast fashion, like the traditional mode of fast fashion. And then Temu entered the Australian market only in 2023. That's, as of this recording, like 2 years ago. And then by the following year, it was making $1.7 billion. So there's something here that's saying that the Australian market loves this. They found a really open market here for ultra-fast fashion.
Yeah.
Let's have a chat about why that might be.
I think it's so important to highlight the scale of these companies and the exponential growth that they've seen is not because they're selling wonderful, necessary, high-quality products. They're selling crappy, cheaply made, super specific products that we probably don't really need. But their marketing has been so aggressive that they've been able to meet that market share so quickly.
Yep.
I don't really spend much time on Temu, but I jumped on their website researching for this podcast. And the first thing that was advertised to me was one of those craft kits where you get beads that are certain colours and you kind of use tweezers to put them into place, like a colour by numbers.
Yeah.
And the image was lion lying on a bed with a blanket that had a lion on it. And it was just, I was so perplexed as to why I would want that and why they were selling this to me. And that's the kind of stuff that has enabled them to reach $70 billion in annual revenue.
Yeah. And also it has a kind of alarming grip on particular parts of society at the moment, right? I've got friends with kids in primary school or even some, co-workers of ours, as we both work at Baptist World Aid together, with kids in high school who are really dealing with there's a societal pressure to keep up with fashion trends and quick fashion trends and never be seen in the same outfit. And I think, all of this contributes to it, and I'm really looking forward to sort of unpacking this further with you.
I think another area that I'm just learning about and finding really interesting is the trend that we've seen recently to this just hyper-specific in a lot of areas of life. I told you about my Spotify day list recently and the crazy terminology that they were using for my music taste that morning. But I think as well there's just a plastic container that's the perfect size for your makeup brushes on your bathroom counter and all of these things where you can get exactly what you need now, made cheaply and from plastic to suit your needs. And I think back to how my grandmother would solve her problems, and there was ice cream containers of frozen diced onions in the freezer and knitting needles poked into the side of tissue boxes to store them, and really making do with the things that came into our lives rather than going out and meeting super specific needs.
Yes, that we didn't even know we had.
That's right.
Cue your wardrobe scenario, maybe, from earlier. What I will also say, before we really get into it is a lot of this psychology is active in a lot of our lives now. And, I don't know, post-COVID it maybe, but also prior to that, we definitely are doing the dopamine chasing. We're definitely doing the things that helps us tick things off the list quicker. It certainly has helped me with my fitness, etc. So we do understand it's not the only industry that's using this, but the scale of it is a lot and it is immense.
Yeah, I think some of those things that we've seen that ultra-fast fashion brands and particularly Shein and Temu are doing to the extreme. Things like countdown timers, unlocking rewards when you play a game, so the real gamification of your shopping, something called the infinite scroll, which we would be familiar with on our TikTok and Instagram feeds, but also removing the pages of products that you used to look at when you were online shopping.
Oh, hold on. So are you saying that the genuine question. So doom scrolling, right? So like on my Instagram or whatever, it's infinite. It can keep going. They've sort of padded it up with more ads and, whatever else. Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't know that.
So particularly on their shopping apps,
right,
you'll never get to the bottom of a category. It
right.
will just keep feeding you new stuff. And there's that mindset around maybe the next product is exactly what I'm looking for, or I don't realize how long I've spent scrolling or how many pages worth I would have clicked through. But I'm just here on that hamster wheel looking and sort of being sucked in.
This is fascinating. And I might, mention here as well, I do work in marketing. I'm the marketing and fundraising manager at Baptist World Aid. And whilst arguably, for many reasons, the charity sector does not use similar tactics in the same way, it is You can't deny that it's not clever. They've understood something about behavioral psychology or the way the human psyche works, and they're implementing it in this way. But it's so scary almost because they know that we are, like way more interested in doing that, or clicking something with a little wheel that says if you sign up and click this wheel, then you might get a freebie, and then you can only get that freebie if you pop something into your checkout now. Like all of these tactics, they really do work. And so that is something that I definitely understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that I am always aware of when I'm looking at these products on ultra fast fashion sites is they have a super random price. So it's not a $10 t-shirt.
Yep.
It's a $3.43 t-shirt. Or, like they'll have that classic tactic of saying something's $4.99 rather than $5. But even more so, it's an odd number on the end. And I think this is just my take. I think it's probably telling me it's so cheap and I feel like I'm paying exactly what it's worth. Like I'm not paying a markup that the company decided $10 is a round number for someone to pay. Actually, it's so little and specific that I feel like, okay, this is probably, there's no margin here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do joke about this, or at least my husband jokes about it, but he is always saying, oh my gosh, Hannah is so susceptible to marketing, like marketing works on Hannah, despite me knowing the game. If there is a particular brand that I have been watching or like waiting for sales or wanting to, do, I understand that is how I work. Like I'm not saying I'm great at this, right? So we're all on a journey. But the reality is that these things work. The sale ends at midnight. Buy one, get one free. Like how long have we been hearing about those kinds of deals throughout our, over decades? Endless new drops. So not just like we talked about earlier, 2 seasons in a year or 4 seasons in a year. It's just all the time. You do want to click that email that says, oh, brand new items. We know it works. So yeah, that is pretty fascinating. And also the impulse thing, because there is something in your brain that says this, or that is being used here, this is how you're feeling right now. Like, and it'll capture a few people in society who are feeling this particular way. And the way to improve that situation is buy this product. Right? We all know that. So it's such a fascinating thing because it does treat money like it's kind of like prices they're meaningless. Money doesn't really matter. This will help you, It's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. Something really important to call out at this point, we mentioned Temu hitting that $70 billion revenue. They're still not actually profitable even at that mark. And that's partially because their cost per acquisition is so high. So that means how much am I spending trying to get a customer in the door versus how much they spend like on my app or on my website.
Right.
And there's varied data, but somewhere between 10 and maybe $30 per customer, that's how much they're spending to get ads on my Facebook, on my YouTube, on my Instagram, on my TikTok. And then I'll go to the website, and if I do get something, they've offered it to me at this like crazy 70% off discount, and I've spent, I don't know, $1.50 with them. And that, of course, doesn't add up. So why are they operating at such a loss per customer, they're wanting to build in dependence and addiction. So maybe as the prices do increase, I'm still looking to them as my first port of call to solve any problem that I've kind of created in my life or wardrobe.
Yeah. Also ask the question, where is the money then being, where is the cost cutting happening, which is what we already have, I think, also covered in previous episodes.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So admittedly, and maybe it's my age range, I'm in my 30s, mid to late, but the reality is that I am not particularly familiar with these particular, Temu, Shein, etc. And I'm pretty set in my ways, which is why I'm like so fascinated about this and would, wanting to know more. The reality though is when I went on to Temu for the first time, I was just shocked at there's a spinning wheel, there's light, there's something flashing, it's so overstimulating. It does feel a bit like a casino or something that's, it's trying to grab my attention in every single way. I'm then imagining there's probably similar tactics as well.
Totally. I think there's a lot of similarity to casinos and gambling. When I agree, I get so overstimulated if I go onto these websites. And honestly, part of me might just want to get something to get away from that like input. And they really have thrown everything at me, really made me feel like there's a great deal that's going to last a short amount of time, removed every barrier so that I make a purchase as quickly as possible. There's a reason that casinos are designed how they are. They don't have sunlight, they don't have clocks, they have all this music, they have all this opportunity and colour. And really it is this dark side of marketing and understanding the human mind and what will keep our attention, what will make us kind of overspend without realizing, whether that be our time or our money. And we're seeing such similarity with these ultra fast fashion brands. And the other thing as well that's like a casino is that it really is like gambling because we know the products are pretty low quality. I don't know if you remember during COVID, the website Wish was bigger and people would do expectations or like product image versus reality, and they would think they were buying they thought they were buying a couch and actually they bought a couch toy.
Yeah.
Or they thought they were buying a Labubu, but actually it's a Labubu sticker.
Yep, I heard about that.
It's just, but when it's so cheap, it's like, I'll take the gamble.
Totally.
It could be cool.
Like what are you going to lose? I think, and that is the gamble component.
Yeah.
I should say, for listeners listening to this, we are fully admitting that this is something that we fall into the trap of as well, right? Like we're not trying to say,
for sure,
you're worse than us for doing that. It's so real. And like I literally said, every single time there's a deal, and especially if it's a company that I was already going to buy from or if it was something I was already looking for, I am susceptible. It straight up is. But it's just understanding. We know that this happens and we're just saying this is exactly what they're doing to try to reel us in.
Yeah. This is just like the way that our brains are hardwired. And it would be great if just knowing that really did turn the corner. But I think sometimes we need to put barriers in place that help us stay on track with what we'd like to be doing and how we'd like to be living, because my willpower doesn't stack up to the marketing budgets that these companies have.
Yep, or even the habits we put into place that are really difficult to break.
Yeah.
My husband and I were trying to reduce our time on our phones, right? And he's actually downloaded an app that has basically it prevents you from logging on. Once you've kickstarted a thing, it's again gamified it, but it's gamified it kind of for good. Like it's fully understanding how we work.
Yeah.
Have you heard about it? It's like
Is
a
it the
little
one
bean.
where like a little bean knits
Yes,
socks?
it's
so
that
cute.
one. So it definitely reduces the amount of time we spend on there. So I guess there are ways to use, like we understand that's how our brain works. How can we then use it for good? But there are in the long term, I think there's a psychological consequence for people who do end up needing to shop or like buying into it all the time. Do we want to talk about because I'm going to say it, like dopamine's a big thing. We live really busy lives that are full of so many different things, and sometimes that easy hit of dopamine of like, yep, I've just purchased that thing that I really want, or it's that impulse buy, it does send you a dopamine hit. So what's the problem with that?
I think on that as well, just obviously we're in this time of a cost of living crisis and the purse strings are a bit tighter than they used to be or than we'd like them to be. And at the same time, that's when we love our little treats and we love to kind of splurge on ourselves in these little ways that still make us feel like we're getting what we want. We're getting that dopamine reward, whether it be like a sugary baked good or a little trinket from one of these places.
Oh my gosh. I will say, when is a sweet treat no longer a sweet treat when you get it every day? Like, surely a treat means, like, surely
once
a treat.
In a while.
Yeah, like once in a while.
That's right.
Anyway, so funny.
Yeah.
But yes, got it. So, and the reality is, I mean, the reason why I'm really interested in talking to you and we're doing this podcast, I'm interested in going, how do I actually do this then? Because I do feel like I have some values in place that I would love to be able to shop in line with my values. But I feel sometimes like it doesn't even matter how often and how much I truly believe that, I can still slip through the cracks.
Yeah. I think with this conversation, it's so hard not to kind of want to pull out my tinfoil hat and feel really manipulated by the marketing of these companies when I know what I want to be doing. And there's so much that we could talk about in the psychology of marketing and how it's getting to us. But as you said, there's a whole nother piece of this conversation where what I value and what I want to do and what I actually do are different. And I would love to unpack that, but let's just pause and head to a break and we'll do that after.
Great.
In this podcast, we've been talking about injustice in the fashion industry, but that's not the only place we see this problem. For 700 million people around the world living in extreme poverty, injustice is felt in the small things. Who gets to eat, be paid fairly for work, drink clean water, go to school, sleep somewhere warm tonight? It's not right that so many people, through no fault of their own, can't access the small yet vital things in life. But together, we can change that. Baptist World Aid is an aid and development organization. Since 2013, we've been working towards creating a fairer fashion industry, one that's better for people and better for the planet. And for over 60 years, we've also been connecting generous Australians with local Christian partners who work alongside children, women, and men, helping them fight injustice and build long-term solutions to poverty. We help communities prepare for disasters like floods or earthquakes, and we help our local partners provide emergency aid when disasters strike. Together with our partners and local communities, we dream of a world where poverty has ended and all people enjoy the fullness of life God intends. To learn more about our work and how you can get involved, visit baptistworldaid.org.au, also linked in the show notes.
So Hannah, you were saying, and I would totally agree, that even with, our best intentions and really wanting to live authentically, we do kind of slip up or go back to old habits or find that we're doing things we don't want to do. And that's the case with our diets and exercising and checking in on that friend that's moved overseas and
also saving money.
And certainly our wardrobes as well. There's something called the values action gap. So I value sustainability and human rights. My action was I went on a shopping spree late at night after 3 hours on the Temu app. And there's a dissonance there. And then alongside that, you would probably think of this term cognitive dissonance, where that's the tension in your brain that values action gap is creating.
Yeah. So many great long words. Cognitive dissonance is great. So essentially there's just a mismatch between what we might deeply understand and the actions that we take, right? Because also life happens. I do feel that there is, and I think that, there's definitely grace here, but I think at the end of the day, there's other things in play. One is cost, which we talked about earlier, and the other one, so these are the things for me, and I'd love to know if you agree, cost and then also time. So, I mean, a perfect example for me is I tried to set myself a bit of a, what's it called, a challenge to only, if I was going to a wedding and I knew that at a wedding I would probably only wear the dress once or maybe twice, depending on if I've got a couple of events that might need it. But for a wedding is a great example of a one-wear dress. And so for me, I tried rentals. My challenge was for any wedding, I would only hire dresses. And I've hired plenty over time. And plus, may I say, for those people listening who are interested in great deals and, making the most of it, you can hire a dress that might be way out of your budget if you were to purchase it, look great for a day, package it all back up for way cheaper and then, that's it. You've also done your bit for like the environmental outcome. But I also understand that takes time. So the cost is there, like it's you can do it cheaply if you rent, but then also the timing thing, you have to have figured out if it fits you and the size of the brand. You need to make sure it's a few weeks out. You need to make sure it's in stock when you book it, and straight up, sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes it's the week before the wedding and I'm just not ready yet. I can't wear any of the other dresses that I might already have, or it's not that, it's going to be a cold weekend and I don't have the thing, and so I'll just buy a new one. And I've like totally had to buy a dress online and make sure that it ships to me in 48 hours or whatever. And sometimes I've gotten two and then I've just returned one. Like, again, we're all in this together. But that example you can't just, like, it's not just by itself, right? I think that there's a gap there because sometimes lifestyle gets in the way, or,
Totally.
we can't do that thing that we'd love to do, which is plan ahead. And is that not also the same for exercise, or is that not also the same for diet? Like planning, discipline, it's always, it's the same game. But for some reason, maybe we don't really do that so much with clothes. Like fashion is not, we don't apply ourselves in the same way or the same discipline as we might with exercise to clothes.
That's right. Just the reality is that it does take work and discipline, but then the reward can be so much greater.
Yeah.
The reward of getting to wear an awesome designer dress that you wouldn't have bought yourself, that you feel amazing in and get to party in at the wedding and then send back to the rental company is wonderful.
It's great.
I was at a wedding recently and I set aside some time the few weekends before and hit up some op shops because I was in need of I was getting tired of the dresses, I guess, that I had that I could wear to weddings. And it took more work, certainly, but the reward of saying, I got this amazing vintage dress that I'm so happy in.
How good is that story?
It's wonderful.
It's so good. There's also something that I think we do drive, and back to that idea of your clothes being a unique identifier or sort of an individualization of who you are, is that idea of saying, oh, you love this outfit? I got it from this one unique place. It's totally not in production anymore. Like, that's also a good feeling. Maybe we could try and swap it out for that.
Totally. I think that's such a great question to reflect on. What story do I want to be able to tell about my clothes? What will I be proud to say? Thank you for your compliment. This is where I got it. This is how I got it. This is the story that I know of how it was made and the workers that were empowered in the process as well. That's so meaningful and beautiful.
Yeah, I definitely went to a cafe recently wearing this overshirt, like this jacket. And the person behind the counter was like, oh my gosh, I love your jacket. And I just was over the moon to be able to say, well, not to rub it in their face because they said, oh, where'd you get it from? And I was like, actually, I got it from an op shop in Japan. Like,
so
that's
cool.
like, what a cool story, So that kind of adds to the uniqueness of pieces. So perhaps there's something there you could do. But then that's also not the other thing, I even said it earlier with weddings. There is a pressure, especially if you have the same group of friends, to not wear the same dress to the same wedding. Like, that is a wild idea, right?
Yeah.
And so we are talking here about societal pressure, and it exists and it's real. So perhaps hiring is a good option out of it. Yeah. Another thing I've done is just borrow my friends' dresses who I know I've loved and might be from a different group of friends, and just say, hey, if you're close enough to them, you could do that. And it is a little bit different, I guess, with sometimes, well, I'm going to say something. It's not always the same, but the men in my life have no problem being able to wear the same suit, because oftentimes it's not the suit that's the identifier. It's like, it's the shirt, it's the tie, it's the thing the types of shoes you wear. Yeah. You can still individuate in different ways while wearing the same kind of outfits or the same base.
Right. I think we can also be proud of the story of outfit repeating and be proud to say, yep, you've seen me in this because I've worn it to, work like 2 or 3 days a week for a long time, or this is my favorite jacket that I'll wear to every event. This cape thing that I have on, I've owned for, I think, a decade now, and I got it in an op shop. That's so cool. And it just has kind of stuck with me throughout the seasons and changes of my style over time, but I always feel good in it. So really, although social media and societal pressures may not help us lean this way, we can say, actually, it's a great thing that you've seen me in this before.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
And I will pause. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but we are seeing a really big pickup of ultra fast. I mean, if you think about a group in society who doesn't have a huge amount of money and also has a lot of societal pressures about trying to individuate or, stand out in some way, or more importantly, blend in, teenagers. Like, being a teenager at the moment, we have heard that there's a lot of pressure. A lot of those, a lot of 15, 14, 16-year-olds, they're all just buying new outfits for every weekend, or it's constant because it's more affordable for them with perhaps the weekend job pay or whatever. And I just think that is a real big pressure to sort of state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because there seems to be people smarter than me might say this is happening across society, but on social media, the middle seems to be emptying out. And on one side of my feed, I'm seeing crazy overconsumption, these videos that are only to highlight new Amazon products that will solve problems you didn't know you had, Shein hauls, all of this kind of content. And then on the other side, beautiful people that are fighting against the system and saying, this is my de-influencing reel for the day, or this is my underconsumption core trend that I'm going to share with you. Actually, I've been mending this skirt forever and I use this yogurt tub for my makeup brushes and things like that. And I think we are losing touch a little bit with what is a normal rate of consumption. We've got people at one extreme trying to pull us back from the other side saying, you can have as much as you want because it's so cheap.
Yeah, that's very interesting and very true. And your algorithm sounds fascinating. Okay, so moving on to this idea of, so this is a reality. There might be this values action gap. Why don't we stop? Like, what is that behavioural driver behind there? We talked a little bit about it. There's a whole bunch of pull and push factors in society, those additional societal pressures.
In making this series, Hannah, something that I've been thinking a lot about is I really wish that just telling someone, hey, this is what's going on in your brain would actually help them change. But we know across the board that's not the case. And actually McCrindle recently released this report all about the paradoxes in the consumer mind. And we're seeing that it's not just the case of ultra-fast fashion, but in a lot of different ways. We really care about one thing and do the opposite. We really are passionate about, for example, thinking that subscriptions are, I'm overburdened by subscriptions, but I also have a lot and will continue to accumulate a lot. And we actually spoke with Ashley, and she had some really interesting things to say about that.
What we, I guess, saw in this study is that as the cost of living rises, consumers are faced with that tough decision of living according to their values or according to their means. And I think it was really interesting. We definitely saw the rise of re-commerce. Actually, in a big study we did for Australia Post earlier in the year, we were talking about that and how the younger generations are more open to purchasing secondhand, and it's not seen as a downgrade of status, but almost like vintage is back in fashion. And you see a lot of that even online with younger generations and thrifting and Depop and how that's kind of become a new marketplace for younger generations. And I think that's hitting both areas in terms of like their ethical and sustainable values, but also the cost of living crisis that they're facing, and they don't want to maybe buy new. But there was just interesting, also we explored this tension between the willingness to repair products and buying cheaper, unsustainable products. And so when we tested a bunch of statements, we found that 77% of Australians said that they're willing to pay for items to get repaired rather than buy new again. So that's fantastic. That's a good news story. However, more than half, 56%, would purchase something cheap even though they know it's bad for the environment. And again, when we look at like the contradictions in this, we hear so much, and we see it in our research that it's the younger generations who are often the most vocal about environmental sustainability, but they're more likely than their older counterparts to purchase something cheap even though they know it's bad for the environment. So I totally understand when people are like, what do you mean? You're saying two opposing things about these younger generations. I thought they were so environmentally aware and vocal about that, but they're the ones who are kind of engaging in the fast fashion. And yeah, I guess there's a lot to unpack. And again, almost the disproportionate impact of the rising cost of living on younger generations whose wages haven't been increasing, who are already struggling to get into the housing market, rising cost of rent, all of those sorts of things. But I do think what it shows at a deeper level is that value still drives decision making.
Yeah, so great to hear from Ashley Fell, one of the key executive advisors from McCrindle, on their latest consumer landscape report, the megatrends shaping, Australian consumer landscape. So there are, some such fascinating statistics about the way Australians and that gap between the way that Australians would like to behave versus how they are actually behaving. The idea that 77% of Australia, that is a large volume. So 77% of Australians are willing to get something repaired instead of buying brand new, and yet 56% said they would buy something cheap, even if they knew it was bad for the environment. Like, that is still more than 1 in 2 Australians.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
so
it's like roughly 2/3.
Yeah, so there is that example of like, yes, we do have a deep desire to go and get something fixed or to fix it ourselves, and yet still a lot of people will still just choose convenience or affordability.
Yeah. Another one that I just thought was so interesting and really relevant to my work and our conversation was that we value buying secondhand. 3/4 of us do, but also we keep buying cheap products even though we know they're bad for the environment.
Yeah.
And I think she spoke to that really well as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I personally also, when I'm thinking about the idea of repairing things, all I have is the sewing skills from year 11, design and technology class, so from high school. So it's very rare for me to ever repair my own clothes. However, I do know a local tailor who I have dropped off a few things at, So I think even if you have that knowledge gap, it would be helpful to sort of have a look outside that box and see who around you can help, or a friend or a parent. Yeah.
I know in the area that we live in as well, there's a sustainability hub nearby, and they run things like mending workshops and repair hubs for bikes and also for clothing. And I was there one day and they were running a clothing swap just for kids' costumes, which I thought was such a good idea.
That's so cute.
So do just have a look at your local council information. Yep. Libraries often run events where they'll help you with this sort of thing as well. And I think that's really helpful to learn. If not, YouTube is a great resource as well.
Actually, a friend of mine recently with her, because Book Week was recently at the point of this recording, and I'm sure a lot of listeners also would agree that is such a manic time with the children, but having to get outfits that are aligned instead of buying new, it's that same idea of allowing a bit of time and going to an op shop. And my friend did that. She said her little boy was dressed as Tintin. It was so adorable. We found these little slightly oversized brown pants, brought them, rolled them up. It was perfect. The whole thing was secondhand. So there are ways to do it without going out and buying just for a costume, because a costume is another way where these ultra fast fashion companies, they offer a great solution. It's quick, you'll probably find the most obscure thing that will work perfectly for it. But perhaps with a tiny bit more research, you could do that.
Yeah. And I don't want to say this in a way that adds any kind of guilt for when we're not able to do this. But as a parent, which I'm not, but if you're able to sort of bring your kid along in that and say, the reason that we didn't just get it on this website, but that you have this kind of quirky, one-of-a-kind op shop costume is because of all these reasons, because of the workers in the supply chain wanting to steward the products that we're bringing into the world for a long time. Just have that conversation with them and think about the impact that you're sort of moulding your kid as a future consumer and participant in the global sort of system.
Yeah. So we've talked about a couple of those mega trends, and as per previous episodes, if you are interested in listening to the whole conversation, where Ashley does kind of pull apart some of those key things and share some of the insights from the report, the link is in the show notes. But I'm interested now in we've peppered the episode with a few suggestions on how we might combat this. But yes, how can we do this? I mean, personally, I already know the reasons why it's hard for me to exercise, it doesn't come easily, but there seem to be so much more out there to say, here's how you combat that, or make sure you do it with another friend, or, sign yourself up for this. So there are things in place to help with that. What could we possibly do to help with, the sort of that internal and external pressure on buying new things all the time?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear more about how you're tackling this in your own life, Hannah, but I certainly find that I need to set barriers and challenges in myself just so that I'm staying on track and living out my values. So we've heard that these brands are gamifying consumption. How can we gamify or set challenges around not consuming or reducing that? So last year, a few people in the office, myself included, set a challenge to only buy 5 new things in the year, or buy maximum of 5 new garments in the year.
Did you do that as well?
Yeah.
That is amazing. I found that actually a lot of tools that help with financial discipline and the other disciplines we were talking about are also really helpful here. So one of them that I do as well is I unsubscribe from marketing emails because, as I mentioned earlier, they really work for me. I really love getting the, oh my gosh, I've got a reward system, at Mecca or whatever it is, like removing myself from a lot of that or just unsubscribing from marketing emails, unfollowing fashion brands or whatever from my Instagram, just kind of spending less time on social media full stop will help you to not feel like you must have that thing because all of it will continue to, your algorithm set up to make you want it, right? Those are 2 really key things that I do to try to sort of help that. And also, and I mean, again, this is about me trying to be my best self, but I do try to really plan ahead. I've got a wedding in November. No, 2 weddings in November. I've just realised one of them I'm going to 100% outfit repeat, but that's really easy because it's a different group of people. And the second one, I'm already starting to look at some op shops and have a think about how I might be able to do it in a different way. But we are currently recording this in September, so there's plenty of time. I'm just trying to do that ahead of time.
Yeah. And that call out to unsubscribe is so good, especially we'll be releasing this mid to late October. We are looking down the barrel at Black Friday and marketing emails and ads just flood in at that time. So take a moment now, pause the podcast if you want, and just go through your inbox and unsubscribe now so that you're not getting that content in a few weeks' time.
Nice one.
So another great way just to put some boundaries around what you're considering, what you might be impulse buying. Actually, this advocate in the space, I think her name is Shakayla Forbes Bell. She has this 4-3-2-1 rule. Can I see myself wearing it in 4 different ways, 4 different outfits? Can I see myself wearing it in 3 years' time? Can I take 2 deep breaths, just pause and consider the purchase? And can I have 1 good night's sleep before I make it?
How good.
And I think if we were doing that for our purchases on these websites, they would not be hitting those billion-dollar revenue thresholds that we're finding.
Yeah, that is the definition of mindful, right? You're actually pausing and being in your body about it. I absolutely love that. In the same vein of utilizing a similar approach, you can also, look, if you're needing that little dopamine hit, do it in other ways. I don't know if you have a smartwatch, but do that to, that feeling of getting your reward of your 10,000 steps a day or whatever, just get it somewhere else. Do that. There's certain bank apps that have some really great saving mechanisms that do it. That's also one of the ones that I have.
Something that I've been getting into, which also kind of taps into that gambling mindset of I don't know quite what I'm going to get, but I think it's going to be a good deal, is that I've started using Too Good To Go. And that's a food rescue app that maybe end of day baked goods, when a cafe is closing or when stuff is close to expiry from a supermarket, they'll put it up on this app and you get it at a really discounted price, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get. So I love popping to the local bakery at the end of the day, picking up my Too Good To Go order and then doing the big reveal, my haul of what I've collected that time. Of course, it's great for the planet, it's great for my wallet, and it really does, it's fun. I really enjoy doing it.
That sounds like a great idea, and I'm definitely going to do that. It's called, what did you call it?
It's called Too Good To Go.
Too Good To Go.
I'm excited to share it, but also there's more competition for those bags now, maybe.
Yep. And hey, if you listeners, you're interested in reading more from McCrindle's Megatrends report, we'll also have a link to that, I'm sure, in the show notes. And yeah, you can have a read more about it. It also breaks it down into demographics and a little bit more about how different generations are interacting with this. So hopefully we've covered a few of those already in the conversation, and we're looking forward to come join us on the journey again for another final episode.
You've been listening to a Baptist World Aid Australia podcast. We know some brands won't change unless the rules of the game change. You can help create a just fashion system by using our tool to write to your MP, urging them to support industry-wide legislation that will mean fair treatment for workers and better protections for the environment. Check out our ethical fashion guide linked in our show notes to see how fashion brands measure up. Baptist World Aid Australia is a not-for-profit Christian organisation. working with communities towards a world without poverty. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're on, and we pay our respects to elders past and present.